YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. As they say, never let a good crisis go to waste. But I guess in this case, of course, a crisis that they create, problem, reaction, solution. Of course, I mean, that's the name of the game, right? And just like I said in my previous videos covering the bank situation, which I covered over on my website at callforanuprising.com, I talked about how this banking crisis, having banks going broke, having banks being run by incompetent people. You see all the stuff being played on the news. The banks are being run by the woke people that care more about your skin color and your pronouns than they do about your money, making people nervous about the banking system, all going according to plan, of course, so that people are fearful of the banks. There's a run on the money. Everybody wants to take their money out so the Fed can come in with their digital currency. And what did they announce just today? Well, they announced that FedNow is going to be up and running in July. Now, for those of you that don't know, FedNow is the central bank digital currency. However, it's not officially the federal bank digital currency, so be careful of some of the stuff that you hear. When the federal bank digital currency is officially rolled out, which they plan in 5 years, it'll be the only option. That means there will be no other currencies, which means between now and then, crypto, other options, and cash will be destroyed. Everything will go through the federal bank. That's how this whole thing is supposed to work. The FedNow, which is being rolled out, of course, is, an experimental trial run. So they'll get some of the libs who are mentally, to jump on board and test it out. They'll desensitize people because they always have to do this with everything. They can't just put it on you. This is how mind control works. This is how the CIA works. This is what Operation Paperclip, they discovered all this stuff with studying human beings, experimenting on them. They realized that they have to desensitize people and pump this stuff, let it out there so they go, look, see, it's not so bad, so that people eventually give in and they join the rest of the crowd, right? So I always use the example of a cell phone. When cell phones first came out, everybody was like, what? Why do I need a cell phone? What is the point of a cell phone? I remember when the cell phone came out and I was just like, whoa, yeah, I don't really need to be followed around. Like, you want to avoid people sometimes, right? You don't want, if you were a teenager at the time, you don't want your mom and dad calling you at 11 o'clock at night if you're out, or you're out on a date or whatever, if you're a girl, et cetera, right? Well, now look at what the cell phone is. Because when it first came out, people were like, ooh, they're like, I don't need that. Just like when Facebook first came out, ooh, what an embarrassment. Only dorks would be on here. Now it's like, you don't have Facebook? Huh, you're really strange. Oh, you don't have a cell phone? What's wrong with you? You have a flip phone? You must be from another planet. Huh? Yeah, sure. Whatever you think, zombie. The whole point is they wear you down and normalize their garbage. So now they're going to do this with the CBDC and, of course, with FedNow coming out first. Now, people have already been worn down to a digital currency, and that's what the credit card was for. That's what PayPal and Venmo and all these other things have been for. But people don't realize that with the Fed, now the Fed is the middleman between everything, and they'll market this in certain ways by telling you that there'll be no transaction fees, that'll be quicker, simpler, and you don't have to ever worry about the Fed running out of money because they print it, unlike the banks who are taking your money and investing it. See how these psyops work? And that's exactly what this is. And of course, I'll play you a clip now for those of you that don't understand it so I could show you just what it is. Also keep in mind that they claim 8.4 million people in America are unbanked, right? Well, this is another way to lure those people in. Because if you're somebody out there who isn't, connected to a bank, if you don't have any of your money in the bank, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, that's the way to go, but obviously there's no escaping this. They're saying that, look, cash is going to be out. You don't have to join a bank, but if you want to make transactions with the money that you have, you're going to have to come, you're going to have to give it to us, and we'll put it on your phone, or we'll put it on an app, And that'll be how you buy and sell and purchase. And this all obviously ties in with the mark of the beast. But here's a little rundown on exactly what you can expect.
The Federal Reserve might want to fix your wallet by turning it from this into this. Though your wallet is still designed for dollar bills, Americans have been using cash to buy things less and less over the years. That's part of why the Fed is considering digitizing the US dollar, giving people money they can access on their phone and bypassing electronic payments that can be slow and costly for businesses. Some see this as a necessary upgrade to the US financial system, but others worry it could potentially upend commercial banking.
There are some very, very difficult questions to answer, but I think we are engaged in a serious program to understand both the technology and the policy issues.
A central bank digital currency, or CBDC, is exactly what it sounds like. A purely digital form of a country's money issued by its central bank that people can use just like cash. It's true that cards and apps already allow for electronic payment, but behind the scenes, these financial transactions involve several steps, settling payments over a patchwork of systems.
The plumbing of the system is still based on a cash system.
Josh Lipsky is the director of the Atlantic Council's Geoeconomic Center and says the US financial system is still pretty old school when it comes to moving money around. After a debit card is swiped, the transaction can flow through several entities including point-of-sale systems, payment networks like Visa and MasterCard, your bank, and the merchant's bank. The system can take up to 3 days to move money between accounts and often comes with transaction fees that can weigh heavily on small businesses, who experts say may have to pass the cost onto customers or put restrictions on card usage. These extra costs can limit their revenues and customer base. CBDCs could bypass this system, allowing digital money to flow directly between two people, in the same way you hand over cash at the register. One method the Fed is considering is issuing digital wallets to Americans directly, or through commercial banks or other financial service providers. The digital dollars themselves would be no more than computer code, possibly stored on a central ledger at the Fed or on a distributed ledger like many cryptocurrencies. When you use your wallet to pay for something, the Fed would take the digital cash out of your wallet and deposit it into the merchants, simplifying the process and doing it without fees. These could be done through an app on a phone, or for those without smartphones, an SMS text message or debit card. Besides frictionless payments, a digital dollar could help the 8.4 million unbanked households who don't have a debit or credit card and can get left behind in a cashless world. For example, instead of mailing checks, the government could deposit your tax refund or stimulus payments directly into your Fed wallet, making the money available immediately. Proponents also say CBDCs offer a much more effective tool for central banks to enact monetary policy. Right now, the Fed influences interest rates across the entire economy by setting borrowing rates between banks, known as the federal funds rate. But this is often a fraught process that doesn't always produce the desired results.
The Fed sets this benchmark rate and other private banks are supposed to queue off it, and then your mortgage is supposed to queue off it. Does that really work? How much time does it take? And the answer that economists will tell you is it works, but there are probably more efficient ways to transfer monetary policy.
Economists believe that if the Federal Reserve were to assign interest rates to the money stored in digital wallets, it would be much more effective at influencing economic decision-making at the household level. According to a January survey, 60% of central banks around the world are currently experimenting with CBDCs. The Bahamas was the first country to release a digital currency, called the Sand Dollar, in October 2020. And China has been developing and testing a digital version of the yuan. But there are questions about how a digital currency would work in the US.
Legitimate digital public money could help drive out bogus digital private money. It could help improve financial inclusion, efficiency, and the safety of our financial system if that digital public money is well designed and efficiently executed, which are two very big ifs.
The recent rise of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and private currencies like Facebook's Diem have spurred central banks to explore CBDCs in an effort to keep pace. Experts say these alternative currencies expose the risk of money and payments circulating outside the watchful eyes of central banks.
This is a blind spot for them because when they're setting monetary policy, they like to know how much money is in circulation, broadly how that money is being used. And so that helps them understand the macroeconomics and the fundamentals of the economy at any given time.
But by keeping up with new competitors, CBDCs could threaten to leave traditional banking behind.
So if the Fed were to become a bank in a traditional sense, and actually issue people money and hold people's money directly, then you might hold less money in your Bank of America app, and that would cut into their business model. So they have to think about how digital currencies affect their business.
Because of these issues, the Federal Reserve is still studying the scope and structure of how a digital dollar would work and how it could be integrated into the current banking system.
The Fed doesn't want to start dealing with 300 million customers overnight. They're not equipped to do that. So you don't want to call up the Fed at midnight and say, I forgot my password. This is not something the Fed wants to be doing or can do. So they need to think about who to work with to deliver digital dollars.
The Fed would also have to tackle privacy concerns over how anonymous digital dollar payments should be, and whether the money should be restricted to specific transactions or programmed to expire after a certain time period to encourage spending. It plans to release a discussion paper on the benefits and risks of a digital dollar this summer, and has said it wouldn't move forward without support from Congress. Many experts say the Fed will need to figure out a digital dollar to keep up with the pace of a rapidly changing global economy. What that looks like remains to be seen, but it could mean using this a lot less.
So you can see the convenience. This is how they market everything. I've always talked about this stuff with technology and how they get people on board with, in the beginning, people were like, no one will ever put something in their skin, or nobody will ever put something under their skin. No one will ever put technology in their bodies. Well, we know a lot of people already have, wink, wink. But how have they transitioned people into doing those things? Well, they've transitioned people through technology like Apple Watches, right? Through Apple Lenses, making technology smaller and smaller, and then having technology track your calories and track your footsteps and track your blood pressure and your heart rate and your diabetes. These are all tactics that they use to condition you so that when they roll these things out, you go, oh yeah, what's the big deal? Because at first, of course, you're not going to be in. Well, they do the same thing here, right? With Fed Now, with digital currency. Oh, don't worry about it. They're going to lure everybody in who doesn't have a bank account because they're going to say your money doesn't mean anything. So if you have $1,000 at your house, you can either decide that you want the $1,000 and you put it in your digital app, or you have $0. And of course, the mark of the beast ties into this. I know people believe that they've taken the mark already, but that to me was an experimental run. If you believe it, that's perfectly fine. I didn't take it, obviously, so that's no effect on me. However, if you look at a lot of the different things that tie into this with being able to buy or sell, it's the future one that's going to be taken. It's the future one that's going to be on a passport. It's the future one that's going to be embedded in your DNA, like gene editing. Heard those words before recently in the last couple of years? mRNA, excuse me, frog in my throat. So the Fed has come out conveniently, of course, after all of these things, right? Because if the Fed just came out, say in July, and they said, hey, we're confirming that Fed Now is here and ready to go, which they have obviously hinted at that, and the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, for a couple of years. But who would sign up for it? Nobody would, right? They go, what? I don't care. I use PayPal. I don't care. I'm in the bank. What? I don't want any part of that. Oh, but now, especially obviously because this gears towards libs who are afraid of their own shadow, they come out with these story after story after story about how the banks are failing. Don't think Fox News and the right-wingers aren't in on this either. The ones who were promoted and pumped, who pump Republican and, all that nonsense, the ones who, don't get banned, et cetera, that you hear and see promoted. Don't think that they're not in on this either. They're the ones who are out there going, look, the banks are incompetent. Look at these woke fools who are running the banks. They know nothing about money, Tucker Carlson. They know nothing about finances. They don't know anything about it. They're hiring people based on their skin color. They're hiring people based on their gender and pronouns and et cetera, right? So they're riling both sides up to have no faith in the banking system. Now, you shouldn't have any faith in the banking system. Understandable. The best thing you should do is invest your money in food and water. I've said it a million times. There's nothing more important. There's nothing more valuable. That's the thing that they're taking away, and they're making more and more expensive. You don't think that's for a reason? Huh? Think about it. You might say, well, I should get land and stuff like that. Well, food and water comes first. Okay? And having your money out of the system is obviously better than having it in the system. But they're not going to have a choice eventually. And bartering is then going to be the next thing that they go after. What do? Oh, but you don't have a license to do that. You're going to need a license in order to be, to practice anything. If you're a carpenter, and you're trying to just barter your carpentering skills with somebody else's skills. This is how things used to work. If you don't know, bartering would be, for kids out there, if you're a carpenter, you'd say, hey, I'll do some work on your home in return. You cook food, you make me dinner. Or in return, What's your skill set? You know, you sharpen iron, I don't know, whatever it is, right? You do things for each other based on your skill set. Well, you'll have to have a license or the government will ban you. Don't think that that's going to ever be the case where you can freely get away from them. Why? Because Satan's obsessed with us, all of us. He wants everybody, but he's not going to get everybody, and he loses in the end because Satan, again, is the ultimate loser. But back to the story here. So nobody would have signed up for this Federal Reserve test run, the FedNow Instant Payment Service, unless there was something ahead of time that made them fearful of the banking system. And that's exactly what this is, right? Now, the Republicans still probably won't promote the FedNow thing because they have to play the part of being anti-Federal Reserve because, I mean, it's the most obvious thing with the Feds and the Rothschilds. Okay, exactly what's going on. I mean, you can look into the Balfour Declaration, which I covered on the website, talking about Israel and everything that, with World War II and the whole purpose of that. I mean, most people should know this stuff, but if you don't, you can join on the website and look it over there. But the United States Federal Reserve has confirmed a July launch date for its long-awaited instant payment system, seen by some as an alternative to the central bank digital currencies and stablecoins. Again, this is just a test run. This is leading into the CBDC, but it's the same thing. They even tell you, they talk to some of these people in the Fed. They're like, it's the same thing, but it's not official for 5 more years because we have to work the kinks out. I'll get to that point at the end here. But the Instant Payment Network will settle payments in seconds and can support transactions between consumers, merchants, and banks. It does not rely on blockchain technology. It will rely on blockchain technology when it's the CBDC, okay? Because the blockchain technology has to do with being in, you know what I mean, with your DNA. Yeah. If you don't understand this stuff, it's easy to see. Just start thinking, using your brain, okay? It's a significant step, it says, for the government as it is controlled by the Federal Reserve Clearinghouse RTP network, which also refers real-time payments, is operated by a consortium of large banks. They go on to say the Fed said it will begin the formal certification of participants during the first week of April in preparation for the launch. So the formal certification of participants. So some test lab experiments, people, lab rats, human lab rats who will sign up for this. And of course, when you're talking about blockchain and money and all that stuff, think about the videos that I did in the past that, you know, even Stephen Colbert covering, deflecting about how they were putting blockchain inside of mice. You starting to see where this is going with it being in you, inside of you. Klaus Schwab talking about it'll change you. These are all trigger terms that people aren't picking up on. But this is the real concern that every Christian and every human being should have. Because if you're Christian or not, you've taken this stuff, you know, and I'm not saying the second the digital currency comes out that it's the mark. I'm saying that all of this stuff is going to tie into it, and we're all going to know the second it hits and be like, there it is, because you won't be able to participate with the digital currency unless you have a certain something in your body when that occurs. So all of these rollouts are happening, and I'm not trying to sound like a know-it-all. That's just my opinion with putting the pieces together, which I tend to do, but doesn't mean that I'm necessarily 100% right. I mean, there'll be people in the comment section who say Sunday law is the mark of the beast. Now, I have no problem with people having their own opinion. I've listened to many, but I have no idea how that could possibly be the mark of the beast unless they foresee something I don't. And if that's the case, good for them. I've listened. I've examined it. I don't agree with it, but it's in my head. In case that ever does happen, then I'll know, and I'll say, good. At least I'm not going to get duped into that. But anyway, they talk about the FedNow program coming out, and they say specifically, here is the quote, we're not at the stage of making any real decisions. Adding that what we're doing is experimenting in kind of early stage experimentation. How would this work? Does it work? What's the best technology? What's the most efficient? Oh, okay. And then they go on to say, if Congress were to decide to issue a central bank digital currency, wink, wink, it could take 5 years to put in place the requisite security features and the design features. Oh, okay. You have anything else you want to tell us about, you know, how it's really the same thing, but you just don't want to tell anyone yet because you don't want to feel like you're forcing it on anyone? Oh, she does. Right after that, she says, the FedNow will serve many of the same functions as a CBDC. Anyhow. So the difference is that the blockchain will be the next step in it. But this is the desensitizing of people to get on board. And the only way they get them on board is to create some type of chaos, right? And then when you wake up Monday morning, if you have money in the stock market, you go, oh my gosh, what's going on with the stock market? If you have money in the bank, which most people do, obviously, You go, oh my goodness, should I go take money out of the bank? It ran through everybody's mind, and that's the whole point of this. That's the whole point. I mean, it ran through my mind, and I don't have much money in the bank, but it ran through my mind. Okay? And what do I always say? When you feel something, stop and then write it down or talk to yourself and say, okay, I see what they're trying to do here. Every single person, I think around the world, but especially in America, because it did happen in the UK as well, woke up and said, all right, maybe I should take my money out of the bank. Maybe I should go take half my money out. Maybe I should go take a percentage out and put it in a different bank. Maybe I should switch my money into a bigger bank. That's what they wanted. That's what they want. That's how it works. There's how psychological operations work. They want you to take your money out of a regional bank and put it in a bank like Bank of America. Why? Because it's eventually going to run through there, through the Fed, and run through there with the carbon footprint. Okay, that's how all this stuff is going to work. It's going to be one currency, but one thing at a time, right? One step at a time. And this step is to prep you for it. This step is to spook you into it. That's what this step is for, like they do with everything else, right? How are they going to get gun control without creating fake events all around the country? They have to create shootings all over the place so that the people beg for everyone to give up their guns. Otherwise, people go, what would I want that guy's gun for? I don't care. He seems like a harmless guy. Oh, we got to get everyone's guns because all these events are happening and I don't want to get shot at Walmart. All right. See how it works? So the government creates those. Oh, well, we got to get everybody in the central banking currency. How are we going to do that? Because people don't want to give up their cash. Oh, first we're going to start creating runs on the bank. Then we'll start creating cyber attacks because that's what's next. Russia's attacked bank accounts. People woke up with no money in their bank. Haven't you heard the stories? Wells Fargo, Bank of America in the last couple of months. People woke up with no money in the bank. That's part of the PSYOP. That's how the government works. They have to spook you into their agendas. Problem, reaction, solution. That is the name of the game. So be prepared. Be aware of what is going to come. The test run. Show your friends this video. Share this content. Again, I'm back here uploading on this main channel. The reason that I haven't is because this channel is completely shadow banned. People are like, well, you got a lot of subs. Well, I want to reach new people. I want to reach new people. This channel is completely unmonetized. So the only, look, I make as much content as I could possibly make. If I have to spend more time in my day doing other things, working and doing other jobs, then that's what I do, okay, to pay the bills and pay for the things that I need in my life. People want to fund the channel so there's more content. You can through Patreon. Do you have to? Absolutely not. But at the very least, I hope people will share this content and help wake other people up. Because that's the thing that's missing with these channels now. When they shadow ban, I can't reach new people. I'm trying my best to reach new people. So I need you to help and share the content. It's not about views. It's not about subs. I don't care. It's about waking people up so we don't have to continue to live in this nightmare. And I know a lot of you go, well, I want the trumpets to sound, so let it go on. Well, I want the trumpets to sound too. But until they do, I don't want to see the devil win. I don't want to see him take souls to hell with him. So hopefully some of you will become Patrons. Hopefully I could see a lot of you over on the website at callforuprising.com. And again, make sure you sub to my other channels below if you haven't, including my Rumble channel, which a lot of my old content is going on, as well as some exclusive content. So I hope to see everybody over there. I appreciate all of you greatly. God bless you and your families.